In this video, I'm going to do my best to respond to some comments and questions actually that were asked in one of my other videos in the comment section. There were some things came up that helped me find a direction to go, and they're very important things to talk about. In this case, the individual is on this path. They're turning inward. They're realizing the verses about them. They're getting triggered. They're trying to interact with that, interface with it, how to recognize where it comes from and deal with it and why it continues to come up. So let's talk about that in this video. My name is Dan Paulson, and welcome. What I am going to be doing is using the nested template, the self-healing template that I find in the material from antiquity that I've talked about, as well as my own personal experience. And I haven't had personal experience with everything that I'm going to talk about, but I want to talk about some ideas, some thoughts on it. One of them was that sometimes people have issues from their past, from their childhood, that are so severe and traumatic that they can't even remember them. There's just a wall there. There's something blank. They can't get past it. And I've never had that happen to me. I've had some things that I thought were very hurtful happen, but I always remembered them. And I haven't had anything happen that was so bad that I couldn't. There's just different things going on. So I've never had to get through that barrier, but there might be ways around it. Let's look at the material and talk about some ideas and see what can happen. Again, this is very psychological. If you're very hurt and you need help, I'm not making any recommendations, but at the end of the day, this is something a person does on their own. They make their own choice. So, all right, well, let's see what it is. Let me read this right here. And it starts by saying that at the end of that video, and I'll post the link below to what that video is, I had mentioned that some people can't remember things. And then they go on to say, that's my stuck place. There's a whole bunch of my younger years that are a blank. I'm not sure why. I'm ready to deal with it, but I'm stuck. There are repeated things in my marriage that triggers. There are really that are really harming me in my relationship. I'm sensitive, insecure, controlling, sometimes deeply angry over silly things, but I can't stop myself even when I'm aware it's happening. Would you have any suggestions where to go from here? Yeah, let's talk about a handful of things, actually. This is a good time to refresh some ideas that are scattered all up throughout the rest of the videos. Okay, and apologies for the air conditioner in the background coming on throughout this. It's getting pretty hot here in the desert, so it's going to run. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is time and the connection to our world. We are incredibly biased when we're thinking about what they're doing, and I need to make sure that I don't get too wrapped up in talking about the past. I know what we need to do here is just get to answers. But in this case, what I want to suggest is that 2,000 years ago and beyond, that imagine that you have your brain right now. You have this kind of capacity, but we're suddenly thrust back 2,000 years and all of our knowledge is gone of our technology. But we're still this person here, and you only know stories and fairly simple lives. That's what they were doing. We are not doing that. We need to understand that we are not living the same kind of lives they are. We're not giving ourselves time. We plug. What do we do at the end of the day? What would they do? They didn't sit and turn on the television and wait for nightfall. They would talk or do something else. They would communicate. They were more community. They were able to talk things out. We isolate. So remember that. We need to understand that we need time to do this. We also realize that we got wired. It's an organic wiring. It's not like pulling out a couple of IC chips or, doing an upgrade or something like that. It took a while for us to get this way. It might take a little while for us to extract ourselves from it. But disconnect from the world. Turn off the television. Get rid of the news. Get rid of all of the things that are coming in that we can't do anything about. Yeah, there's a train wreck coming. But the more you keep watching the train wreck, the harder this is going to be. You're going to have a hard time getting someplace while we're wrapped up in what's going on in the world. We cannot change ourselves while we're hanging on to that. It's incredibly important to find some peace, find some quiet, get away as best you can. I know that there's people in cities that don't have transportation. I don't know what to do. Find the way that works for you. Use your imagination. Put some headphones and something on that makes it seem like you're not there. It only has to happen in the mind. It doesn't have to happen in real life necessarily. As long as the mind is grown and convinced of a certain thing, that's how we work. So, okay, find some quiet, disconnect. Know it's going to take time. It will take time. The material, without jumping into verses, talks about perseverance, sticking with it, being patient, forgiving 7 times 7, whatever. All throughout the material is this idea that it might take a while. You're going to have to work at it. So know that in this day and age, in our Western culture, we're looking for a pill or a drink or, a drug or something that just makes it go like, oh, everything is cool now. It doesn't work like that. There's actually electrochemical storage up here that has to change. Whatever it takes to change that is what we're looking at right there. Bottom line. This is what we need to change. How do we get to it? I get very clinical, so I have to step back and make sure I keep the emotion where it needs to be. The emotion is absolutely key. Keep an eye on the emotion. We often don't like the way it feels, but it's telling us something. If we don't feel good about something, we need to understand that that's not something we move away from, that's something we need to go look at. Learn that. That's something it's the opposite of what we do. When you turn inward, now it's like, okay, instead of running away from what bothers me, I got to go find what bothers me. I have to illuminate that. So the emotions all along the way are going to be an indicator of how the healing process is going. If you feel very bad about something, not healed. You work at it, you work at it, you work at it. You go look at it, you go, well, I still feel bad about it. You're not healing. Or I feel better. You're healing. You're going through that process. Forgiving as long as it takes. Do it again, do it again. We can be a little bit more direct with it than they could, I believe, because of what we know about the brain that they didn't know. So we've got to jump on it. Although we don't have their simple lives that we really need. This is designed for that. Okay, let's kick around the younger years that are blank. Let me read that again. It said, that's my stuck place. Things I can't remember. There is a whole bunch of my younger years that are blank. I'm not sure why. I'm ready to deal with it, but I'm stuck. Okay. First of all, what I want to say is I'm not sure exactly what you mean about younger years. But I will say that I know, the way that I believe, the way that I see things is that in our youngest years, we really don't have memory of those because we didn't have the brain structure in place yet. We didn't have enough knowledge from the outside. As we're growing, as we're learning, learning to eat and want things and see things in colors very simply, we don't even remember doing that stuff because we're just not developed enough to have the mental network. And not until maybe 4 or 5, we start, maybe there's little flashes earlier on, but just little images here and there. But by and large, we don't really start having a full-on memory until we're learning more and more. And the more we grow and the more we network, the more we become who and what we are. So the first years are going to be gone. Those won't be there. But I'm still going to say that during those years when you couldn't process things, if you were being abused in some manner, that is still probably going to affect you. There may be things emerge later that are like, I don't know where this behavior comes from. And that could be it. Maybe something happened during that time frame that got put away that you just didn't have the capacity at that time to process it. You were too young, too small. Anyway, I honestly don't know if that would be the case. We're really just trying to, if we were together having a talk, this is what we'd be doing, just kicking around ideas. So I feel like that's what I'm doing right now. But I also know that there are people who have trauma that there are walls up. And it was actually a story that I got out of a Science and Mind magazine many years ago. It was an Omni magazine. It's not around anymore. And it had a lot of leading edge things on, science, probably some pseudoscience as well, but mind and things like that. At any rate, there was a lady in there. There was an article about a woman who had lost her marriage. Yeah. Child custody, things like that. Something had gone wrong. She married her childhood sweetheart. They went to college. They got into a law firm. Everything was okay. But somehow things began to fall apart. I won't go into all those details. She went through various things, doctors and psychologists, and nobody could help her. And as a last resort, she goes to what is a hypnotherapist. And yeah, okay. The hypnotherapist is the guy that wrote the article, but he did say, yeah, I'm not here to claim past lives. But what the process that they did was he would take them through hypnosis into some sort of a past life that they would talk about. And they were out of this woman with some horrific things. And then at some point in time, she began to, after bringing them out of hypnosis, they would discuss what the issue was. Yeah, in the 14th century, you were this or that or something weird. It was weird stuff. I don't really follow what was the reality of it. What I realized later is that there's something mental going on, that it doesn't have to be real, but there is something mental that is going on in the mind of this individual. And that can't be doubted, because in the end, she calls him up and says, hey, everything is okay. My law firm hired me back. My husband and I are reconciling. Everything is wonderful. Oh, and by the way, I just remembered when I was 5 years old, my uncle molested me. She had blocked that, and that was probably the issue that was the core thing. But he went on to say, sometimes people have so much shame, or they hold so much pain around this thing that they can't get past it. And that past life therapy thing was somehow a mental go-around for them to find something. It was like a way to get around the barrier and find somebody else to take the blame. It was somebody in the past. It wasn't me. It was kind of a mental shift of putting responsibility somewhere else that allowed that person to say, guess what? I suddenly remembered this. I went through and everything is fine. There's probably more to the story than that, but that was basically what was there. And I wanted to say that now because I think that that's pertinent. It was one of the things that made me realize, oh, I have to talk about my things. I didn't have that wall up. That was a time I remember reading that thinking, oh, I need to do that same thing, I think, if that's what they're doing to heal, except that I don't have the wall. I can just go straight to it. I don't need a hypnotherapist, a hypnoregression, any of that, no. But that might be an option as well. Okay, having said that, I think what we all know, but is we really should work at understanding this is, being known by one's fruits, or that what emerges from an individual is what is inside of an individual. But you know what? It's an emotional state that is the issue. When we're getting triggered, there's a couple of things happening. First of all, the trigger is this. We are holding something inside of us that is not resolved. It is not. And it how does it reside in there? What does it look like when it gets triggered? That's how it's residing. Is it angry? Is it shame? Is it whatever it acts out as is what it's made of. We know that. We hate getting triggered. We don't want to get triggered. I have said in my life in the past, when will this quit? Won't it stop? Yeah, I've been there. Okay, first what I'm going to suggest, and it took me a long time in my process to figure this out, is to change the way that I feel about getting triggered. Instead of saying, I hate getting triggered, I had to go, you know what? I like getting triggered. There is something inside of me trying to emerge, and I'm carrying it inside and I don't know it. I don't see it. I can't see it unless it gets triggered. If it doesn't get triggered, you don't even know it's there. You want to get rid of it, you have to be triggered. If you don't get triggered, if you go live in isolation someplace and you got a pile of stuff and you never get triggered, you'll never know that it's there. And that might be okay, but that's not really what we're about here, are we? We want to get rid of the behavior and the things that are acting out that is hurting our lives and the lives of people around us. And yeah, when you're getting triggered, instead of fighting it off, say, yay, I'm getting triggered. Something's emerging. What is it? Here's an event. But this event is not the issue. Whatever is happening out here that I just got ticked off about is not it. Stop right there. Let it go. What do I feel? What is my emotion? What is emerging from me that I can look at from outside myself? Become that person that looks at you and says, whoa, what are you doing? There you are again. Hey, can you see that? How do you feel? Engage with yourself in a way that you're looking for what it is that is coming out of you that is an emotional thing. This action, the triggering, the acting out is the manifestation. It is the final result of the seed that is planted, that now is growing, that got fertilized, that is now growing, and it's going to die, and it's going to season again. It's going to cycle over again. And we know that. So we're looking at what that is. We need to know what that seed is. That is what is making everything else happen. And if you can't see what that is, you have to infer by looking at the fruit. You go, what is it that I'm feeling? What emotion is happening here? What is it relative to? Is it an issue? It'll be tied to an event, not necessarily that event, but it'll be tied to something that in the physical world that has to do with how it ties to your emotional state as well. Look at those two things and understand that what is happening out there is not the issue, but that the issue is what happened in the past. And there's a cyclical emergence happening that you have to continue to change. Whatever you don't feel good about, transmute it. I don't like getting triggered. Change that. I don't like the way I feel about this. Change that. These things are what are going to make us cease being what's there. But again, I know that in this case, it's like, okay, what's happening? What is coming out of me? I get it. When we get wired with everything, we want to go back and resolve big issues because they hurt us, so we do. And then we live life going, why am I still acting out or doing things like this? It's because there's a lot of little issues. We got wired a certain way. We're acting out the way we are. And if you can say, I'm done doing that, I will never do it again. And then, a day later you catch yourself doing it again and go, I am done doing that, I will never do it again. And then a day later, it's not work. You can see the cycle. There's something that's still being hung on to that has to be found. And that's up to the individual to say, what is it? How do I find this? I have quiet time. I used to go walk in the desert. I would be thinking, I don't know what about this. I don't know about that. I would think about it for a while. I would start walking, and eventually my mind would be wandering. I wouldn't be thinking about it anymore. I'm looking at the sagebrush and the shape of the rocks and the other cool things, checking out a lizard or something like that. And at some point I would realize I've got a memory going on from childhood in my head that was exactly what I needed to see. It's like, here it is. Those times where you're thinking, oh, that song, I can't think of the name of it right now. And then later when you're not thinking about it anymore, it occurs to you. That's the process that's going to be happening. You're going to want to know an answer. Then you got to be quiet. Then you have to learn to recognize when it's happening. But if you're going to be radio on, TV on, stuff blaring, not going to hear it. You might hear it this way. If it haunts you bad enough, and you want to know it bad enough, ask yourself to let it be revealed to you somehow. And then when you're waking up freaked out at 3 a.m. and can't get back to sleep because life is so frazzled, what comes to you at that time? Look for it to come at that time. Try to find some way there is something in there that can emerge. You just have to allow it to emerge. It's there. It's acting out. You just have to see it without going, I hate it. You have to see it and go, oh, I see you. I recognize you. You have to treat it differently. And then when you're with somebody, they have to be on board with that. My wife has been so patient, where I have repeatedly gone through things and she's allowed me to grow. But I've learned a lot too. She's launched off at me before, you this, you that, you keep doing this, you say this, and then you do that. And, I have to listen to those when she's doing that and not be raw. Although there's times where I know she's got her own issues into it as well. So I have to be quiet and think to myself, I'm working on myself here. It is more difficult when you involve other people. Gospel of Thomas somewhere. Who is it? I can't remember it. I will bless you 1 out of 1,000 or 2 out of 10,000 or something like that. And I kind of read that as if you're by yourself, it's going to be a rare thing to do this. If you're with somebody else, better work it out. Or somebody's got to let things go. If you're on this path, you're going to have to learn a couple of things. You probably have a value system that is like this, that exists within an acceptable global value system that is broader than yours. So there are going to be people that are going to be violating your value systems without violating what is okay in society. we can have tighter value systems. We're going to get pissed off at people. People are willing to talk about each other and hurt each other's feelings and say bad things about each other that we're not really about that. But there's nothing wrong with this. So we're going to struggle at those times. There's no doubt about it. You have to look at that and say, sometimes you will trigger me, but I won't trigger you because I feel this way, but you allow this. So I never violate your value systems, but you constantly violate mine. Those are possibilities. And you might just have to go, well, I need to let myself understand that they're operating within acceptable parameters, and let certain things go that are not important. They're certainly not the most important. We have to extract from things that are, letting some things go. Another thing is that if this is one that comes out of Jesus material, most specifically is where I see this, is the idea of if there is a temple built, tear down the cornerstone, that it can be destroyed and rebuilt. And the 3 days isn't 3 days. That's a time frame. That is something different. But that there is the idea that there is something built there. There's a structure in place that is not a good structure. There is a structure in place up here that is not a good structure. To tear it down, grab the cornerstone, destroy it. What is the worst thing you have? If you know what that is and you can get that out, that will make everything else easier. Other stuff starts crumbling away. It's small by comparison, and it teaches you the process. If that's something that's there. But if you don't know what's there, you just have to keep looking at the fruits and trying to extract yourself from it and take the time. This is a perfect time to bring in a little bit of I'll just read from the Gospel of Philip from the Nag Hammadi, a short section right here that has nested teaching, but it's not nested very deep. So it's pretty shallow, it's easy to see, and it totally pertains to what we're doing right here. Most things in the world, as long as their inner parts are hidden, stand upright and live. If they are revealed, they die, as is illustrated by the visible man. As long as the intestines of the man are hidden, the man is alive. When his intestines are exposed and come out of him, the man will die. So also with the tree, while its root is hidden, it sprouts and grows. If its root is exposed, the tree dries up. So it is with every birth that is in this world, not only with the revealed, but with the hidden. For so long as the root of wickedness is hidden, it is strong, but when it is recognized, it is dissolved. When it is revealed, it perishes. That is why the word says, already the axe is laid at the root of the trees. That's from Matthew 3:10. It will not merely cut. What is cut sprouts again. But the axe penetrates deeply until it brings up the root. Okay, I'm going to stop right here and say that it's doing some of that verse transition, that layering that we're talking about, transitioning from outward looking to inward looking. You see it went from the intestines of the man to the tree to the inner wickedness. So it did that transition, but it did it kind of smoothly. It didn't look as cumbersome right there. And they're talking about whatever grows from the tree, you cut it down, something is emerging, you cut it down in some way. What would that mean if we've got something emerging from us? You're apologizing, you're saying, I don't want to do that again. You're doing something that's like, we're cutting it down, but the root is still there. So it continues to emerge. It's letting us know we got to go after the root to make it stop. We can't just chop it down each time. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Yeah, right. Okay, then what goes on to say, Jesus pulled out the root of the whole place while others did it only partially. Okay, so that sounds like in order to get to the Christ consciousness, you clean it all out, not just a few big things. You keep going after everything that's nagging at you. That's what it sounds like you can go part way or not. So this is not a matter of just saying, I accept you into my heart. One step, it's a done deal. No, this is something different going on. We see that there's Jesus pulled out the root of the whole place while others did it only partially. As for ourselves, let each one of us dig down after the root of evil which is within one, and let one pluck it out of one's heart from the root. It will be plucked out if we recognize it, but if we are ignorant of it, it takes root in us and produces its fruit in our heart. It masters us. We are its slaves. It takes us captive to make us do what we do not want, and what we do not want, we do not do. It is powerful because we have not recognized it. While it exists, it is active. Ignorance is the mother of all evil. Ignorance will result in death because those that come from ignorance neither were, nor are, nor shall be, and then there's some stuff missing right there. For truth is like ignorance. While it is hidden, it rests in itself. But when it is revealed and is recognized, it is praised, inasmuch as it is stronger than ignorance and error. It gives freedom. The word said, if you know the truth will make you free. Ignorance is a slave. Knowledge is freedom. If we know the truth, we shall find the fruits of the truth within us. If we are joined to it, it will bring our fulfillment. Okay, what do we get out of this? We have something up here, a bunch of stuff, and you can go in and clean a lot of it or a little bit of it. We can be the man of the tombs. We have skeletons in our closet. We have demons that possess us. All of those metaphorically are representing this idea that something is in charge of us and in control of us. And they're teaching it 2,000 years ago. Life hasn't changed. We're still trying to figure this out. We're still trying to figure it out. And we need time. But what clearly emerges in these words is that ignorance of it, keeping it hidden, not emerging it is what makes it grow, which keeps it there. That bringing it out into the light, emerging it, it doesn't say that. It's remaining ignorant of it, becoming knowledgeable of it, seeing it, viewing it for what it is what makes it lose its power. It gets its strength in our perception of it and our fear of it. Once we begin to look at it, our perception changes and our fear diminishes. It goes away by simply looking at it, by figuring it out, by observing what we don't want to observe, and getting past the fear that prevents us from doing that. But then, in a case like this, we're looking to see, I don't know what the root is. So you're looking at the fruit, trying to ascertain, what does it pertain to in the world? What kind of a physical thing am I connecting it to, and what kind of an emotional thing does it tie with? And knowing that comes from inside of me. Okay, and if I were to go on here, the idea of I'm sensitive, insecure, controlling, sometimes deeply angry over silly things, but can't stop myself. Those are probably all, those are just emergent behaviors due to the inner conflict that we're trying to get a hold of, that we feel all of those things because we don't know what to do. We're a mess. Things aren't working. We're not in control. We feel like we're in control. We try to take control and you step back and go, oh my God, I'm making it worse. That is why all of those things happen. And I think that, I don't know that I would work on sensitivity, insecurity, control, sometimes deeply angry. It's good to know those and to recognize those and to know that they are emergent from mental concepts that we hold that are in conflict with what we want in life. What has happened and what we hold as fear and shame and pain is in conflict with what we want in life. And we're trying to get rid of or find that fear, that shame, that pain, what happened, and how to resolve those issues so that we don't continue to bring them with us. And that's really what they are. And then also, though, is to take people like yourself or like me that came from places that were, I know people had some bad things happen to them, but they were in generally good, loving, caring homes. I was in a loving, caring home, I guess, but it was very abusive. It was just the way that it was. It was not healthy. We get wired that way, and then we become that way. So not only do we have to resolve our issues, but we also have to go, I need to learn how to act differently. I need to learn how to respond differently. All the things that I was wired with are not the right way to do it, but they're the go-to because they're there, because they emerge. If they come out, you see them. What happens when the person gets in beside you and tries to get in when the lanes have been cutting down? I mean, how do you feel at that moment? Those were things that I would use to measure my own capacity to see how I felt about things and how I was connected with life. There are people who would go, yeah, go in. I don't care. I got good things going on. I'm listening to things. You don't bother me. Other people would be like, you need to get in line and wait like the rest of us. Just watch how you act. That is how you are. And it comes from a place where we were wired. It's just core wiring. And knowing that and going, oh, I see that. Yeah, I can accept that. I see how I am and I see why I'm that way. Can help diminish it. But learning to do other things, I don't know, maybe that'd be another video. Trying to find some sort of a practice that you do that is actually like helpful towards accomplishing something. I don't know. A lot of times I know if I have a fear of something, that if I help somebody else over that same fear, mine is diminished. It's kind of like you're circumventing your own. Oh, that's it. Maybe. Yeah, if you can find somebody else that's in a problem like this, I don't know if the two of you can work together. I don't know. But I do think that the as the triggering is happening, at that moment, there is a connection between the seed and the event. And if you can stop it at that moment and analyze it, where is this coming from inside of me? That will be very important. But then, looking at it like, oh, yay, I'm getting triggered again. I get to see it this time. You're taking on a different kind of a mental framework with respect to looking at it and wanting to see it, and it will begin to emerge. As soon as we take our blinders off, we'll see it. I'm convinced now that when they say whenever the student is ready, the teacher will emerge, the teacher's here all the time. It is everywhere. All we have to do is open our eyes and look at it, turn it inward. It's in everything we have from antiquity. We're kind of losing it today. But anyway, I don't know what else to do in this video. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or comments or additions, please feel free to add them in. Other people with other ideas, this is, let's work together. All right. Hope it was helpful. Love one another, and I'll see you in the next video.